And we four shall find this girl. We, nightmares, made flesh, shall walk the night again.
Though small in stature, Phil Fondacaro puts mountains of effort into every single one of the roles he's ever played. Lucky for us that Mr. Fondacaro has spent so much of his time working with Charles Band in both Empire Pictures and Full Moon Features. In fact, on Empire of the Full Moon, the show that you're watching right now that's all about Charles Band's work, I've spent a lot of time already talking about Phil Fondacaro's work, whether it be Dungeon Master, Troll, Ghoulies 2, or Blood Dolls. We've already covered a lot of his work. Well, ladies and gentlemen, today we're going to be talking about another one of his films, and one where he gets to play a very familiar character, and we'll get right into that once you like this video and subscribe to this channel. Here you go. Phil Fondacaro, born in 1958 and having over 70 acting credits, in my opinion, deserves accolades in the highest echelon of Empire and Full Moon Features. He deserves to be there, rubbing shoulders with the likes of David Dakota, Ted Nicolau, John Carl Buechler, Jeffrey Combs, and Jacqueline Lovell. By the way, she gets in there, even though she wasn't in a bunch of them. She was in enough for me, if you know what I mean. And anyway, obviously, when it comes to Full Moon and Empire, it's very common to utilize puppets, dolls, men in costumes, and standing at 3'6", it stands to reason that the production, that Charles Band's production would like Phil so much because of his stature. Well, that's true to a point, but there's so much more than that for Phil. In Confessions from a Puppet Master, Charles Band said, "Phil Fondacaro was one of my favorites to work with, a good actor and a thoughtful guy. But because of his stature, he's a dwarf." Can you say dwarf anymore, by the way? I have no idea. I don't know what the PC term is anymore. My bad. Because he's a dwarf, not a lot of roles come his way that really shows off his talent, except in my movies, meaning Charles Band. For Troll, I had something special in mind. If we remember back to Troll, he did play the titular character, but he also played Dr. Malcolm Mallory. However, Band employed him to just play a normal, like a normie, you know? If you can call it, well, I mean, you can call him a normie if you can call any character that Band creates a normie, right? But in Ghoulies 2, Blood Dolls, and many others, Phil has played a character that didn't have to be played by a little person. They could have had a regular old guy, but I'll be honest with you, Phil just fits right in there. And I know it's Full Moon Features, and I know that Charles Band loves all that little stuff. And obviously, he's going to use little people. But Phil, my point is, I'm trying to, I'm just trying to let you know that is not his career only. He always gives it his all. His energy, his focus, and his drive. In all his movies, you can totally tell. If you've seen or will see to get today's movie, The Creeps from 1997, you have or will notice the energy, the focus, and the drive. And, the thing is in just the complete, like seriousness that he puts into the role. Fondacaro doubles down on that point as he talks about how he feels about playing Dracula in The Creeps.
We are, in every aspect of the word, the real McCoy. We are the real I am Dracula. And it's, I know for the audience that it would probably be something that would have kind of a funny tone to it. But as far as I'm concerned, I'm playing the part as serious as possible. I mean, being a little person, I would never ever, as an actor, ever get to play a part of Dracula. I would never ever get that that opportunity, and we're doing it here, and I think it's coming out really, really well.
The Creeps was released in 1997 and was directed by the one and only Charles Band, our man. For his many wild ideas that he's come up with over the years and the weirdness that he puts into most of his movies, you can chalk up The Creeps just fitting right in along with the rest of the stuff. This one stars Rhonda Griffin as Anna. You'll remember her from Hideous as the ditzy receptionist at Belinda Yost's office. Justin Lauer as David Raleigh. He was the video store manager / private detective. His office was in the back, which I loved. Kristen Norton as Miss Christina, Anna's boss at the rare book section in the library at the U of Chicago. Bill Moynihan as the mad scientist Winston Berber. John Simonton as the Wolfman. Joe Smith as the Mummy. Thomas Wellington as Frankenstein's monster. And of course, the legendary Phil Fondacaro is Count Dracula. So the setup is actually pretty unique. We've got Winston Berber, who is the mad scientist, and he's trying to bring the classic horror icons to life. And he's not trying to be somebody that's inspired by them to life. No, he's literally trying to recreate Dracula, Frankenstein's monster, the Wolfman, and the Mummy using what's called an archetype inducer. The archetype inducer is some machine that takes words from a book and can create the physical manifestation of the characters in the book. It doesn't matter that these characters are from the works of fiction. It can materialize these characters and bring them into the world in corporeal form. The science is sketchy on how it works, but it is, after all, a full moon feature, so let's not dissect the plot too much. But in order to do this, he needs the original manuscripts of the novels for his invention to work. It just so happens that these novels are all available in the rare book section at the University of Chicago Library, the same library where Anna happens to work. She's got them all locked up in the back. Obviously, Winston hatches a plan to steal them for use in his archetype inducer machine. Anyways, long story short, he ends up getting the books, but something with the machine doesn't quite go as planned, and instead of creating full-size terrifying monsters, he ends up with these tiny, like knee-high versions of them, and that's not really knee-high. I don't know if my knees are at 3'6", but anyway. And that's where the movie gets its name, The Creeps. Not exactly the most intimidating crew you've ever seen, but honestly, without something crazy like this happening, it just wouldn't be a full moon film. To fix the issue with the size of the monsters, Winston ends up kidnapping Anna Quarles, who works at the library, like I said, and just so happens to have the right kind of presence and energy and lack of sexual experience that this machine needs. For some reason, who knows what it is. She's basically a key ingredient in bringing these monsters to life. But along the way, we've also got David Raleigh, kind of a reluctant hero who gets pulled into this situation, ends up trying to save Anna when everything starts going south and stop the mad scientist before things spiral completely out of control. So like I said, you've got these miniature universal monsters running around, causing chaos, right? And the movie just kind of leans all the way into that, man. You've got Dracula acting, well, he acts like how a Victorian times Eastern European member of royalty would act, right? You've got Frankenstein's monster, the Wolfman, the Mummy acting like mini Monster Squad. But regardless of how ludicrous this situation seems, I love that Phil Fondacaro plays Dracula straight up. Well, meanwhile, David is running around trying to piece together what's happening. He's trying to rescue Anna and put this whole experiment down. Anna, for her part, isn't just a helpless victim either. She's actively trying to get out of this situation while dealing with a madman and a squad of tiny monsters creeping around. But let's be real. As much as there's a plot here with Werner's plan and David trying to stop him, that's not why we're here, right? It's not why we're trying to watch the movie. We're here for the spectacle. You got to watch these, you get to watch these miniature versions of the legendary monsters argue, posture, drool, and just kind of add to the overall vibe of this one. But like I said, they all kind of take it pretty seriously in the contrast with for instance, Phil Fondacaro, like taking it seriously and owning that role against kind of the backdrop of just the utter ridiculousness of the whole story and what's going on. I think is really great, and that's probably my favorite part of this whole movie. Well, the budget is low, the effects are exactly how you'd expect them to be, and the situation, as always, like I said, is kind of ridiculous. But that's why we love this stuff. I know that's why I love this stuff, and I know you love it too, so whatever. Now, I know you're not going to believe it when I say this, but I'm not sure how, even though this was kind of a wild and weird flick, and I hate to use the word pedestrian with this movie, but a couple of the full moon features that came out right around the same time, like Head of the Family and Hideous, and they're just so bad crazy that it kind of makes this one seem a little mundane. And I don't mean mundane in the story or the idea behind the movie. I mean, there was just not as many what the F moments, in the Creeps as there are in those other two. And the thing is Neil Marshall, as Benjamin Carr, wrote all three of these movies and seemingly saved all his wildest stuff for the other two. I'm not trying to say that everything he's written is amazing, right? But to have those two bangers in the same 12-month span as this one kind of left a little bit to be desired. I'm going to reiterate. It was not the situation. It was not the ridiculousness. It was just the kind of wacky, zany stuff that happens along the way that I wish some other stuff, kind of crazier. I don't know if I mean like nudity. I don't know what I mean. It's just, I mean, if I were doing it, I would be making these movies too, and I can't. So I just feel like this could have been a little bit wilder, and that would have been my preference. That doesn't mean I didn't, I liked it. I mean, I did like it, so don't worry about that. Well, but honestly, in the Creep's defense, Head of the Family and Hideous were by far the two best full moon features that came from the Kushner-Locke era, at least in my opinion. Those two were bangers, and they're not going to get beat. So anyways, there were some fun details in this one. Like, for instance, David, the private detective / video store manager, has some fun asides where he talks about other flicks, and they're fun to pick up on. Like, he talks about Franco, stuff like that. There was the relationship between Anna and Miss Christina that was pretty funny. And Bill Moynihan plays his character perfectly, man. Just a weird scientist guy with all sorts of quirks. And I don't know. I did like this one. I just wish it kind of had a little bit more in the weird department, I think. And I really do. I just don't think that it hit its potential, right? It was a great setup. I don't know like I said, I don't know what I have done to add to it. But like I said, that's not why I make the big bucks. And one other thing I forgot to mention is that this was actually shot in 3D. Totally filmed in 3D, and I would love to see it in 3D. It actually had a very limited theatrical run around Halloween of 1997. I would have loved to check it out for the first time in the theater in 3D. 1997, geez, that was a long time ago, but I don't remember exactly when I saw this for the first time. But I do know that it was on a VHS tape that I rented. This one has it had that great cover. I mean, you're walking through the horror section, you see the cover with all the tiny monsters. Just weird. This also has a great video zone with it. It was light, it was fun, and I'm all about that. One thing that bummed me out while I was watching the video zone, though, is Charles Band gets on there. He's talking about how his next movie is going to be Bride of the Head of the Family, and that hasn't come to pass even now, right? So that sucks. Anyway, I don't know. I guess that's it for this one. Make sure to subscribe to the channel and browse around. I promise there's something here you'll like. Also, make sure to visit corpsecollective.com to see everything else that we have going on over there. So until next time, I'll catch you guys later.